So hi everyone again. Thank you so much for your participation in today's Sustainability Open House. Before we begin, I would like to take a few moments to review our agenda and center ourselves in our shared goals for today's meeting. In order to improve our service to the Cupertino community, our goal as staff members of the Sustainability Division is to enhance our communication and empower residents, businesses and staff, and community organizations to contribute to our upcoming projects, including our climate action and zero waste planning efforts. Through a brief presentation, we will first reflect on last year's accomplishments and give an outline of objectives and challenges in the next 12 months. After, we invite you to share your ideas and feedback during our brainstorming activity and open discussion. We're looking forward to hearing your ideas, questions, and feedback. Please submit questions through the Q&A module at the bottom of your screen at any point during the meeting. In the Q&A box, you may vote on the questions that you are most interested in discussing. If you would like to participate verbally, please click Raise Hand on the bottom of your screen to indicate that you wish to share. If you are calling us through your phone, you may dial *9 to raise your hand. During the Q&A and discussion, we will then invite you to unmute yourself and speak. Now I will pass it over to Andre, our Sustainability Manager, to offer a few opening remarks and begin the presentation.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for that great introduction, and I appreciate everybody who's dialed in today. So really just to repeat the purpose of today's open house is to talk about ways that we can improve our service to the Cupertino community. We want to share some of our recent accomplishments and our look forward for next year, the next 12 months on the objectives we have and that the City Council has put forward for us. Really, the purpose is that this is going to be hopefully the first of several events that we have throughout the next few months to build more lines of communication between you, the citizens and business owners of Cupertino, and us as city staff. And we really hope to build more lines of communication and collaboration on these projects we want to do. After this event, we're hoping that you are a little more informed about what the council has put forward as priorities for us for the next 12 months. And we really want to hope that you get excited about the different ways that you can contribute to those projects and initiatives as volunteers and active members of the community. So really what we're going to do is I'm going to give a brief presentation, maybe about 15 minutes, giving you a look at the opportunities that we have in front of us. As Vanessa mentioned, we're really hoping to have a lot of dialogue at this meeting. So we've left plenty of time for you to utilize the Zoom tools for us to receive your feedback, receive your questions, and we want you to go ahead and use that question and answer feature, which is right at the bottom of your screen. You can click on Q&A and type in your comments at any time. That while I'm talking, if something strikes a chord with you, you want me to elaborate on it further, just put it in the Q&A box. There will be also opportunity for you to, for us to unmute you so that you can elaborate on that comment, and really hoping to use this Zoom meeting to have a dialogue. We're going to talk a little bit about volunteerism. And yes, we're going to be recruiting for a couple of interns. We'll talk more about that. But really one of the focuses that we have is there's so many active groups and organizations in Cupertino and in the region that are activists and lobbyists and just generally concerned citizens in terms of environmental protection and sustainability. At last count, there's at least 24 organized volunteer groups that I know of who are working on issues of social justice, housing, pollution, climate change, transportation, and really there's enormous opportunity for us to collaborate among all these different groups and for us as city staff to learn more from you about the issues that are important to you. So I'll do a few introductions here. So my name is Andre Devort. I work in the city manager's office. I manage the sustainability division, and that's responsible for creating and implementing our climate action plan. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a minute. Also on the line here is Gilly Corral, our climate and utilities analyst. We have Victoria Morin, who's going to lead a breakout activity for us later today. And Vanessa Shin, who's just finishing up 1 year of service with us here as an AmeriCorps fellow, which AmeriCorps and the Civic Spark program have been really awesome contributions to us here in the city for many years now, and Vanessa's just wrapping up her year of service. So with that, Vanessa, can you click over to the next slide, please? So really the question we want you to think about while I'm talking here, and I'll really try to keep my talk brief. I hate just talking all the time. This is the question we want you to think about. What's your vision for a greener Cupertino? Why is this question important? Really, it starts with trying to focus in on items that are important to you. And as we go into this next 12 months, we're really going to be doing a lot of planning. Planning in terms of what are the strategies we want to accomplish and pursue here in Cupertino, and then what are you interested in and capable of contributing to, whether you're a high school student, you're a student at De Anza, you're a business owner. I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting perspectives here, so we want to capture as much of that as we can. And I will mention too that this is new to us. Obviously, coronavirus makes everything a little different for us, so we'll talk a little bit about how we're trying to adapt to a really challenging environment. So think about this question: if you were the ambassador for all things environmental, what's the first thing that you would want to accomplish in Cupertino? And then later on, we're going to do a little whiteboard exercise and get your feedback and put that up on a board and have an open discussion about some of those objectives. So next slide, please. I'll start talking a little bit about our climate action plan. So our climate action plan was adopted in 2015. It really is a roadmap for us as city staff to take a look at our community's sustainability efforts. It outlines a lot of strategies, a lot of measures, individual things that we should be doing or have already done to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is a main focus, but also looking at local air quality, community beautification, livability, and adapting to a changing climate. So all of those things are contained in our climate action plan. There's about 200 or so measures for us to accomplish. Since 2015, we've accomplished quite a lot of those measures. And you can go on to cupertino.org and download our latest progress report, which was completed a few months ago. And you can see kind of where we stand in terms of our climate action plan. What did we plan in 2015 and how much have we accomplished today? And a couple of things I want to highlight here. Really, we've seen a huge drop in our carbon emissions in the Cupertino community since 2015. 24% reduction overall since our base year of 2010. That's a huge accomplishment. A lot of that is due to our zero carbon electricity supply. That's another policy that we had. I believe that was in 2017, 2015, I think 2016 or 2017, we became members of the Silicon Valley Clean Energy, which has been a great partner for us in achieving a cleaner Cupertino. The largest emissions remaining in Cupertino are in the categories of transportation and natural gas consumption in buildings. So those are really the focus of staff as we're looking at greenhouse gas emissions. But we'll get into a few other things here that's only a part of the picture. Our climate action plan also has strategies that we want to address in transportation, energy, water, waste, and green infrastructure, or how we're using our land in a sustainable way. So again, log on to cupertino.org and /green, and that'll get you to our website where you can see our progress report and see all the details. This is the document that I'm referring to when I say we're going to update our climate action plan next year. We did get support from the City Council to kick off that process. So I'm really excited about that. So much has changed since 2015, since we created our first climate action plan. The world is really a different place, even before you think about coronavirus and the amazing social justice movements that are going on right now in this country. You know, the world is different. The technologies that we have are different. Our urgency to address climate action, we've really heard strong, especially from the youth community in the last few months, on the urgency of taking actions. So really we want to take all of this energy and wrap that into a whole new set of strategies that we're going to start creating. And we really need that. We really need your support and a diverse section of Cupertino to really be involved in that process. So really, this is just the first of hopefully several outreach opportunities as we kick off the climate action plan update for next year. Next slide, please. And again, if there's any comments or you want me to elaborate on anything, just type it into that Q&A box and we'll have time for some discussion on that. So a few recent things that I wanted to highlight related to sustainability that were accomplished by the community. So the first thing is the VIA shuttle, which is in the category of transportation. The idea behind the VIA shuttle is to make Cupertino more accessible without having to use a car. This has really obvious benefits for sustainability and reducing the number of cars on the road, the amount of emissions and air quality pollution that that comes from cars. And so far, VIA has been a great success, hitting roadblocks with coronavirus, but I know that they're making huge efforts to make it a safe asset for you to use. And I know that that's going to be a part of our portfolio of ideas for years to come. Another thing I'll mention that we recently completed was reach codes, which is something that had huge amount of citizen interest and lobbying at the city council meetings to consider reach codes. And essentially that means that new buildings in Cupertino will have to be built using clean energy sources. So that's going to take a huge chunk out of future carbon emissions in Cupertino in years to come. So that's just one example of a lot of citizen involvement in that process. Another thing we've done is we've been recognized by the federal government for making it very easy to install solar photovoltaic panels on buildings. We've made the process streamlined. And that's just one example of a policy that we have that can make it easier for business owners and homeowners to have green energy on their own homes. We did achieve our greenhouse gas targets for 2020. So back in 2015, we set a target for ourselves that we wanted to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by this much. We actually hit that goal already in 2019. So that's a huge achievement. But also looking forward to the next 5, 10, 15 years, the state of California set some really aggressive targets for us to hit. So really now, as we look at the next 5 to 10 years, we have to think about zero carbon or carbon neutral communities. And that's going to be a really exciting prospect for us to think about what that means and how we can do that in a way that supports businesses and the community at large. So we're really excited to dig into that challenge. And then I mentioned that we joined the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Group, and they're just such a huge partner for us. I know that several of you have probably worked with them. They're sponsoring volunteer organizations in the region, and they provide the city with grant money for us to pilot different projects. So we're really excited about the partnership that's evolving from Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about what can you and the community look forward to in the next 12 months. And this is just a selection of some of the initiatives that we've been tasked with by the City Council. The first one is Cupertino Green at Home. We're exploring and we'll be rolling out an app that you can download to expand upon our existing resources for you and your family to consider being greener at home in your own daily choices. And really, we're hoping that this application is something that can help you develop your own personal climate action plan. And this is going to be important because we think a little bit of friendly competition among neighbors and between different cities in the area can really help to kickstart individual actions, but even better than that, using all the data and feedback from these applications, we can then enhance and create better policies and better programs to support you and the community. Another item I want to highlight for the next 12 months is our zero waste planning process. Zero waste is a kind of a new concept, but it's really talking about more of a circular economy rather than a buy stuff, use stuff, throw it away kind of mindset. It's really challenging to think about for us in the city, but we're going to be diving into this issue with some planning and outreach to local businesses and homeowners this year, and really trying to discover what that means for Cupertino. So stay tuned for more on the zero waste planning effort. Something that we think is really important is our Green Business Network. The Green Biz program has been going for many years here in Cupertino. We've been recognized by the county and by the state for having, for offering really hands-on and kind of concierge support to green businesses and businesses that want to adopt more green practices. One thing that we're hoping to do to support businesses that are really struggling right now is to really try to lift up the certified green businesses in our network, make sure that you all are aware of the effort that they've gone through to be more sustainable and to really promote their products and services and really lift them up as a really key part of our community. And the next initiative that I think is really exciting, and again is just a piece of this larger puzzle, is our Climate Victory Gardens program. We're just designing this program now and hope to have something launched by late August or September. And the Climate Victory Gardens program is going to offer an easy way for you to plant a drought-tolerant native garden at your home or property, and really try to reduce the barriers that people face to create a nice slice of nature on your own property. This has great potential as well for improving the environmental quality of our neighborhoods, making them more beautiful, making them more attractive to pollinators, and really excited about this program. Okay, next slide, please. So, what are the challenges that we face? We really do face quite a lot of challenges, and I don't want to be scaring anybody, but it is kind of scary when you look at the world. One of the things that I try to do in my own personal life and at work is try to frame everything as an opportunity. So maybe I'm just a hopeless optimist, or maybe I'm just a little dull, but I think that there's enormous opportunity in all these challenges, and I just have 3 examples. The first example is really obvious and it's all around us, the public health challenge, the challenge that coronavirus has in our communities and around the world. It changes everything about how we do normal business. It changes all the things that we have to think about when we just interact with people in our lives. It's really hard to say too much about how it changes the way we do things. One example is this webinar. This is the type of thing that we would love to do in person at Community Hall, at Quinlan Community Center, get everybody in a big room and have dialogue. But this is us trying to adapt to a new way of doing things that protects your health and also allows us to keep doing the work that we need to do. But if I'm flipping that around and looking at the opportunity in that, maybe our existing way of doing community engagement wasn't perfect. Maybe now's a chance for us to do things differently, try to include a wider audience in these types of events. A great example is that all of our council meetings are now online. For some people, maybe it's easier to attend a council meeting when it's online because you can just dial in. You can still offer your public comment. So I'm hopeful that the outcome of all this will be better engagement, more options, more flexibility for you as an interested community member to get involved. The second example is in the economy. My perspective is that you need a really healthy and thriving economy to be sustainable. You can't have one without the other. So really hoping that, for example, in our Green Biz program, we can help support the business community. We can help them to access resources, to install renewable energy on their sites, to adopt green cleaning products, and overall to thrive in whatever comes next in our country. So we're really hoping to succeed by adopting sustainable practices, and really hoping to use your collective voice as well as volunteers and engaged citizens to uplift those businesses. And the third example is in climate change and environmental protection. This is just a historic moment for climate action. We've seen the youth climate movement really take a big stand and increase urgency and put pressure on elected leaders at the local level and at the state level. Already we're seeing the environment changing and we have to adapt to that. How are we going to adapt to that? That's going to be a big question we're asking ourselves during our update to our climate action plan. What are we going to do to consider more smoke from wildfires, more hot days, more extreme weather events? How are we going to change the way we use our roads and our trees to think about those as green infrastructure? Also, California laws are changing in response to the climate crisis. So we as public servants have to take into account what's changing at the state and national laws and react to that and really try to stake out a leadership position in those areas. So the opportunity there is really, how can we create green jobs? How can we upgrade our buildings with new technology? How can we install new native gardens that can absorb rainwater better? Those type of things. So again, these are all opportunities, but they're also kind of scary challenges, but we're all here to kind of face that together. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ways that you can get involved. I'll mention that we will be recruiting for a couple of interns coming up here in the next few weeks. We're excited about that. But we only have the capacity to support 2 interns. What about all the other volunteers and interested people? Well, again, we're really just trying to increase the lines of communication between us and all the active groups out there, so that we can all be smarter about the strategies that we're following. So we'd like to put this in terms of learn, leverage, lead. That's the tagline from our climate action plan. So we encourage you to continue learning about these issues. If you're a high school student or recent grad or a college student, there's lots of opportunities to get involved and to learn about the challenges and find something that really speaks to you. We really hope that you can learn about these issues and then use that information to leverage your actions in your life. So no matter who you are or what your position is, you can use your network, your family, your choices in what you buy or what you don't buy, your vote. All of these things are things that you can leverage to improve sustainability in your own life and in the greater community. And then the third thing is to lead. Take a leadership position. You can help others to learn. You can help others to leverage their resources to be greener. And a few of the images out here show you some of the members of our community who have done just that. On the left-hand side is some of our sustainability commissioners who who are volunteers in the community. They raise their hands and serve on our commission and advise the City Council on all things sustainability. We work with them all the time. They do events like the Sustainability Speaker Series, student grants, those types of things. We have volunteer-led, what we call lid flips, which are fun opportunities to get out there and look at trash. It sounds weird, but it's so fun. It's strangely fun if you've never done it. That really helps us to know what we need to improve in terms of education and what's going into the landfill. And then, of course, we have our Earth and Arbor Day Festival every year. Unfortunately, that was canceled this year. But that's the type of event that is really driven by volunteers. We couldn't do that event without the volunteer network that supports it. Yeah, and so those are just some of the ways that volunteers have been involved in Cupertino programs recently. And what we're going to be talking about a little bit more in our breakout activities, other ideas you would have if you're a volunteer, or other things that you'd want to see the city do. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'll take a pause here and see if there's any questions or comments. Vanessa, can you see if there's anything in the Q&A box, or this is a great opportunity for you to hit the raise your hand button or *9 if you want to raise your voice.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andre, for that presentation. Looks like we have one hand raised right now and a question in the Q&A box. So I see Kelly's hand is raised. So right now I will invite you to unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Kelly Tung, and I saw that on your future agenda, you mentioned that you were going to support the green businesses, and I think that's really great. One question that I have for you is, are you looking to maybe help schools become green certified as one of your future projects? I know for a fact that I think almost all of the schools in the FUHSD school district, like all of them are not green certified schools at all, right? Like I know Harker is, but like none of the schools in our district is like green certified. So I think if we did like become green certified for our schools, we could save a lot of energy, water, cost savings, etc. So I think that would be a really great like plan, or something you might look into. Furthermore, I know at Kennedy there is like this 3-bin waste system, like compost bin, recycling bin, trash bin, but like I didn't see that at Monte Vista. Do you guys maybe have any plans about maybe collaborating with schools to bring like green and sustainability to the schools as well?
Kelly, that's a great question. So I'll just take a couple pieces of that question, and maybe I'll ask you, Vanessa, to look up. I think there are a few certified green schools in our area, but let me just address that in general. You raised a really great point, and actually something that we could really use your help with as somebody who attends these schools, or if anybody on the line is a parent. We do need help with getting interest into these programs. And so if you notice, for example, at Monte Vista, there is opportunities to improve, it'd be really effective for you and maybe a few other students to try to, rattle the cage is what we used to call it at my last job. Just raise awareness and say, hey, did you know that the City of Cupertino staff will actually walk you through the whole process to get green certified, and take a look at improving your waste, recycling, and compost bins. We have all those resources. Our challenge as staff is that there's only so many of us, and we really use your energy to get the management at the school to come to us and get interested in the program, and we'll take it from there, because we have a really hands-on approach to the green business program. We'll go out and do site visits. We'll walk them through the whole process, and use our knowledge as professionals in this space to really help them to see all the benefits of that program. Vanessa, did you see if there's any green certified schools in our list already?
Yeah, I can address the comment on green businesses. Thanks so much, Kelly, for your feedback and great idea. We were actually in contact with some staff members at the Fremont Union High School District, and there are also some students who independently approached me about participating and helping contribute to our getting their school certified. So there's definitely interest there from us to support schools and I think from the schools themselves. So I would echo Andre in saying to continue to express your support and team up with your classmates and make it a reality.
One other thing I'll mention, Kelly, especially with regard to schools, we've got lots of great schools and we've got deans at college. The city doesn't directly manage any of those schools or their facilities, but what we can do is to partner with them. One good example is if a school is interested in doing solar, they could partner with us and with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, who's, as I mentioned, the regional power utility, to help them with that process. We can help them with identifying the rebates available, maybe helping them with ideas on how to get the project off the ground. That's the type of service that we offer to the local schools, and that's also part of our Green Biz program. So I love the Green Biz program because it's like an umbrella. Underneath that umbrella is a lot of other things that are important to us, such as waste management, conserving water. There's a lot of measures. It's very diverse kind of program. And so we like to promote Green Biz because it does address a lot of practices that you otherwise wouldn't think about. So great question.
All right, thanks so much. So have another hand raised from Brandon. I'm gonna invite you to unmute yourself and you can share.
Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm from the Cupertino Youth Climate Action Team. And I just have a little bit regarding the climate action plan. Cupertino is in this period of like rapid expansion and growth with construction sites, blooming everywhere. And so I feel like now is like the perfect time for the city to sort of take the lead in addressing the environmental issues with our current construction practices. It's like there are dozens of ways to utilize carbon negative building materials. So just like building materials that result in less emissions. And so we can utilize materials that actually, trap carbon dioxide during the production. So materials like hemp or other cellulose-based building materials, we can utilize carbon capture and storage systems, which reduce the amount of CO2 involved in the production of materials. Or we could utilize naturally carbon-absorbing properties of materials like cement. And I feel like there are a large variety of avenues for the city to explore this goal. So I'd like to suggest that the city pass a resolution or an ordinance of some form, or something in the climate action plan that initiates the search into policy regulating and incentivizing the use of carbon negative building materials. And so one good local example, I guess, is cement production. Cement production is responsible for about 5.6% of the world's annual CO2 emissions. And I believe that Lehigh Quarry is seeking to expand their operations. So, like something like a carbon tax or subsidizing the search into better, more environmentally friendly business practices, or even like a carbon capture and storage system could massively reduce the CO2 production of the site. So yeah, that's what I have.
Great, thanks for those comments. So definitely put those in when we do our sticky note exercise. That's going to be really valuable input. And a couple of things I'll say to that. The first is that it's a really relevant question. That issue has been taken up by our Sustainability Commission. Our commission is, as I mentioned, a group of 5 citizen volunteers who advise the City Council on these types of issues. We are currently helping them to look at what's called the Buy Clean initiative, and also looking at Marin County that has has just done a similar type of ordinance in Marin County that we're watching very closely. We do have a provision in our green building ordinance that promotes carbon disclosure of what we call embedded carbon. And there's a discussion we had on that issue in a recent staff report that we produced for the commission that you can look up on our website. So definitely attend those Sustainability Commission meetings or submit an email. And that's the best way to get that kind of feedback into the hands of the decision makers. I'll tell you that we do incentivize that type of construction practice right now, but we don't require it. And so that is certainly an issue that would be really important for our commissioners to know about. And I think that anyone who's submitted those kind of requests to the commission, they really appreciate that kind of feedback, and especially since it sounds like you've researched this issue.
Great. Thank you, Brandon, for your comment. Let's see. So there's a lot of lots of hands raised and lots of questions. I'm going to pivot to the Q&A box. So we have a question. What systems are you currently using to collect and track the data? I think
good question.
Yeah.
So we currently use, I'm actually really excited you asked that question because we have a few things we're going to roll out in the next few weeks that will hopefully provide a lot more insight. We love data here. We're kind of nerds. So we love tracking data and analyzing it and seeing how we're doing. The main system we use is what we call an energy management and analytics software. We use that system to capture all of our utility bills so we can see how much money we're spending on utilities and all of the associated consumption. So actually, I'll hold off on answering that in more detail because we're actually going to roll out a whole set of dashboards that you can see that we've posted to our website that will offer a live view of all of our utilities at all of our sites, water, electricity, natural gas, and that will be posted to what we call the Environmental Hub website, and we'll be sure to advertise that widely. So I'm really excited you asked that question because I think that getting that kind of data in front of you and keeping you more informed about what's happening in our facilities is really important. We also have created recently an interactive version of our greenhouse gas inventory using Tableau, and this will be posted to the website where you can actually interact with the data that would otherwise just be stuck in an Excel workbook, and hopefully, be much more accessible to people to understand the key sources of emissions and why that's important. So great question.
All right, thanks, Andre, and thanks for that question. Now we're going to switch to, you see I have Dashel, your hand is raised, so I will invite you to unmute yourself.
Cool. Hello, my name is Dashel. I'm a conservation assistant with the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. I'd like to talk really briefly about some of the targets that other cities have been proposing in their draft climate action plans that I think are really exciting. So Palo Alto, in their draft climate action plan, they're looking at an 80% below 1990 levels by 2030 target. And Menlo Park is actually looking at zero carbon emissions by 2030. They're looking at achieving that through a 90% reduction in CO2 emissions and then eliminating the remaining 10 emissions through direct carbon removal measures. So I would love for Cupertino to sort of join the ranks of the cities leading the way in setting really aggressive targets. And I think that when you have a bunch of different cities setting these aggressive targets, goals that may seem really far off or unattainable, because there's communication and coordination and consensus, they become very realistic. And I hope we can move not only our area here in the state, but have a ripple effect across the country by setting these targets.
Thanks, Dashel. And I know that Sierra Club has been really active in helping cities to set those kinds of targets. I'll just mention that the state of California has proposed a carbon neutral economy by 2045. And so we're really hitting into high gear right now when it comes to carbon emissions. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I really hope that we have your voice and the other organization's voice when we go to consider what our next set of targets should be. personally, I think we should be looking at carbon neutral, before the state of California requires it. I think it's possible. My main concern is to make sure that everybody has understands what that means, and that the benefits of that are really widely shared with businesses and community members, and especially that we have a focus on equity. So those are all great comments, and really hope that you're able to come and bring that back in our sticky note exercise in just a few minutes, and also in the future engagement meetings that we'll be having.
Will do. Thank you.
Vanessa, let's take let's take the two hands that are raised, and then for the other questions, we'll bring those back up in the open discussion period.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you everyone for your questions. I see we have Ketchup with your hand raised. I will allow you to talk right now.
Yes. Hi, I'm in the Cupertino Youth Climate Action Team. And basically just adding on to what Dashiell said, like scientists say that if we don't take strong climate action within the next 10 years, climate change is going to be basically irreversible. So we should try to get as close to carbon neutrality as possible. And like setting a goal, something like what Palo Alto is doing, would be really great. Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback. And again, this is great feedback for me to hear. And for us in Cupertino, I think we're going to get a lot of support for those kind of measures, as long as we can make them practical and achievable. And the other thing I'll say is that looking for ways to get involved, since this is a global issue, we have a few suggestions for organizations that are acting beyond borders of Cupertino that can also help share some of our success stories and some of our learnings more widely around the world. So I really encourage you as volunteers. Local action is huge, and it makes a big difference. I think Dashiell mentioned that the actions that we're taking here ripple out into the rest of the country. That's really true. And so local action is important. There's also other ways to get your voice and create more dialogue outside of Cupertino and with the world. So this is a really exciting time to be involved.
Great, and we have one more hand raised, and then we can jump into our interactive activity. So I see Ashley, your hand is raised. I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself.
Hi, so I'm a local high schooler at Cupertino High School, and I'm also part of the Youth Climate Action Team. So one thing we noticed was that the ban of single-use plastics was already added to the council's work program, which is great because that's definitely a huge issue with regarding pollution and just climate action as a whole. I had two questions about it though. One was what the current timeline seems to be around. Like obviously everything would not be in place, but just the general structure, as well as how strict the ordinance will be. Like for example, the city of Berkeley has really strong ordinances regarding single-use plastics. It targets a lot of disposable items such as straws, stirrers, napkins, utensils, tops, lids, etc. They also require that food providers charge customers 25 cents with disposable cups. They can only provide disposable items upon request, and that all of these items have to be compostable. So I was just curious on how strict our ordinances will be when this ban comes up.
Sure. So we do have direction from the council to explore single-use plastics ordinance of some type. And I don't have any details on that because we will just be kicking off that process very soon. So what we're doing is we're watching some of the other, the county of Santa Clara is actually coordinating some of the cities with looking at plastic, single-use plastics. A good example of this process was back in the day, we did a plastic bag ordinance that was led by a collaboration of the county and other cities in the state of California, and then eventually it became state law. that's a really common way for these kind of things to happen. But I don't know what it's going to look like because you need to help us craft that. That's going to be a subject of study. And so the Sustainability Commission meetings are actually a great place for you to dial in. And I would encourage you to take a look at the city calendar. If you can figure out how to navigate the city calendar and see the upcoming meetings, you can see when that's going to be on the agenda. Another good way is to sign up with our mailing list. We'll try to keep people informed on when that's going to be coming up for discussion at the commission. And that's going to be a great opportunity for you to submit an email, show up to the meeting, dial in, and make your preferences known to the commission. So great question. So I think with that, we're going to move in. We're going to do a quick exercise on the whiteboard. I'm going to introduce you to Tori Morin, who is our environmental outreach coordinator.
Hi, Andre. Thanks so much for that great presentation. And thank you everyone for your questions. Keep them coming. So we are going to revisit that question that Andre had introduced in the beginning, and we're going to do it in a fun new digital way. Let me share my screen here. One second, sorry about that.
Tori, since we're running short on time, while you're queuing that up, I'm going to actually answer some of these questions in the Q&A box. I'll just type them in to the Q&A box, and then we can, if we have time, unmute folks and we can discuss those questions further.
Okay, yeah. So your question's up here in the upper left. If you're chosen as an environmental ambassador, what is the first thing you would want to see accomplished in Cupertino? So some of you guys are already giving these suggestions, and that's great. I am going to put 2 minutes on the timer and let you guys really solidify those questions down to the size of a sticky note. If you do have more than one, that's okay, but really just trying to create that impact and that what would you want to see and thinking on a bigger scale. So I'm going to start the timer and give you guys some time to think, and then we'll submit the questions in just a second. All right, time is up. So as you guys have composed your thoughts, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A. If you would rather raise your hand and share, that way I can try to solidify it down to a sticky note for you, but we'll talk about some of them in just a second. Just go ahead.
There's some great comments too in the Q&A that happened before our whiteboard exercise here, so let's add those as well. There's a question about housing and climate action we could put up there. There's a question about carbon negative. That's definitely an interesting one for us to consider. And environmental impact from disposable products. These are great. While you're typing those up, I'm going to just start digging in a little bit because, Tori, I think that I think that this is a great idea to start putting it up visually. I'll just make a couple comments and then see if you can take it away, Tori, with more of any themes that you see. So one of the things I see is really a lot of sophistication. So just goes to show you that you guys are already pretty well educated about what our options might be and what you want to see. So, you know, this is just really valuable for you to get in front of the city council and the various commissions. I'll just comment on one item, which is the carbon negative question. Generally, carbon negative means that we're going to be investing in things that are actually pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. There's a few companies that have actually made pledges to go carbon negative. I think it's a really fascinating idea, and it's certainly something that we should include in our study when we look at different strategies in our CAP update. And then the only other thing I'll mention is there's a question here on how can the Cupertino Youth Climate Action Team be continually involved in the development of the CAP. That's going to be a huge focus of ours, is making sure that you're involved and that you're aware of all the different opportunities to stay involved. So the best way is just to sign up with our mailing list. We're going to be promoting any and all ways to get involved. And then it's pretty safe bet to say that any of our Sustainability Commission meetings from now until 12 months from now are going to have some discussion about the Climate Action Plan included on the agenda. So those are the two things that I would recommend.
I see a lot of great ideas coming in. I actually noticed the carbon negative one also. That was one of the first ones that I saw. I think that came in from Ketchup. Ketchup, did you want to speak on behalf of your comment and maybe elaborate what you had, what you were thinking a little bit more? If not, that's okay too.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah. So basically, going carbon negative, we can, like, since Cupertino is expanding a lot, we can try and make our concrete or building materials carbon negative. And if we go negative, we can reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, and basically also help other cities like reduce carbon dioxide. And yeah, I think it'd be really beneficial to the environment. That's it.
Great, thanks so much.
I'll mention too, one other topic on carbon neutrality and carbon negative that I've seen is go Google the commitments from Microsoft and Intuit, are two tech companies in the region I know that have made pledges on going carbon negative, and there's a lot of details on what that means in their on their website. So those are pretty cutting edge techniques and certainly worthy to explore. Thank you.
Yeah. How about this one? The first thing I would want to see is the increase of encouragement of people to be more conscious of their choices as customers and consumers. That's a great one. Let's see who said that. Sorry, I'm technical difficulties here. Vanessa, do you see who submitted that question to unmute them? Or maybe if you want to raise your hand if you want to talk. Anyone else want to raise their hand and elaborate on their ideas? Okay, or just general questions. We have about 4 minutes left.
This has been super helpful to have a conversation about these topics. And like I mentioned, this is just the first of several type events. The items that we're writing up here on the sticky notes are going to be definitely fed into our planning activities and things that possibly our interns will be working on. So we're really excited to get your feedback. And yeah, please raise your hand and we'll just open up the conversation with our remaining time.
We do have a hand raised. I'm going to allow you to talk.
Hello, it's Dashel again. So I wrote the post-it about electrifying existing buildings. And I again want to point to Menlo Park's draft climate action plan. I thought they had a really cool approach, basically attacking it from all angles. So they're looking at, exploring different funding sources for retrofits, which could even extend to like UUT funds. They're also looking at implementing a cash for clunkers style program to get people to prematurely retire their gas appliances before they burn out. And then once gas appliances do burn out, they're looking at enacting a burnout ordinance, kind of like a REACH code for appliances to make sure that people are replacing their gas appliances with electric ones. This seems to be the direction that the state is going. So I think getting these plans set early on would really help the Cupertino community transition faster to where we're all going to be inevitably heading anyways.
Yeah, there's a number of options that we have. The existing buildings, as you saw on our greenhouse gas report, and specifically fossil fuels used in existing buildings is one of the biggest areas we have to address. That's something of particular interest to me, especially because in many cases, what we call decarbonizing or helping these buildings to switch over from gas to electric appliances is actually going to save money for these homeowners and businesses. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. And Silicon Valley Clean Energy right now is working on a number of programs to help the private sector, schools and businesses and homeowners to do just that. One example is a rebate program they have for installing a electric heat pump water heater. That's proven to save money and reduce carbon. So those types of things have what we call co-benefits. We're really interested in promoting those types of things, especially when it can help somebody to save money as well. So thank you, Dashel. We'll definitely be looking at all these choices. So we're just about at the top of the hour. So what we'll do is we'll wrap it up here, and I just want to say a couple things in summary. Again, this is us trying to adapt to a new way of doing things. Thank you, Tori, for helping us to test out this whiteboard program and adapting to something that is totally new for us, right? Normally we'd be in a room, sticky notes on a whiteboard, that kind of thing. And so we're just hoping to test out new ways of creating dialogue with you in the community. So a couple of suggestions for you is to take the Green Volunteer Survey if you haven't already. We'll be sure to send out a link to that in a follow-up email to all the attendees. I'll mention it again, attend the commission meetings, attend the council meetings, and make these thoughts known. As I know that some of you already are, the message really does come across and really does result in real action. So that's a really exciting part about being involved at this point in time. And then if you're signing up for our mailing list, then you'll be notified of all the future events that we have planned as we dig into the climate action plan and zero waste plan. And then I mentioned as well, we'll be doing an open recruitment for 2 interns. We're looking for either high school or recent high school grads to get involved. And actually that is another item that you guys in the community asked for. You lobbied for that with the council, and here we are producing that. So that's how it works. There's really a lot of power that you have in the community if you know how and where to make your message heard. And we here in the staff are really excited to be working with you and working with you in the next 12 months as we dig into these questions in a lot more detail. So I really appreciate all of your participation, and just the level of questions and knowledge out there already is really impressive. So thanks for your time, and we hope to see you again next time.